Hello and welcome back to Mystery of Israel Radio. I'm Tom Quinlan, and today we're going to pick up on our comments on Daniel chapter 2, the vision of Nebuchadnezzar. Last week we just went ahead and read through the entire account of the situation in which the lives of Daniel and his friends Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, even the lives of men who would later betray Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, all of their lives were in danger if they could not give the king the interpretation of the dream that he could no longer remember. So just that context and the drama of that speaks of the life and death nature of the revelation of these things. If it's true that these visions have to do with the climax of the age, with the restoration of all things, and I believe they do, then it's not surprising that even the giving of the visions is surrounded by great contention. So anyway, let's pick a few verses now. Daniel chapter 2, verses 19 through 22. It says, "Then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel answered and said, Blessed be the name of God forever and ever. For wisdom and might are his. And he changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding," or knowledge to the discerning. "He reveals the deep and secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him." A few verses later in verse 27 it says, Daniel said, "No wise man, no enchanter, no magician, no diviner can explain to the king the mystery he asked about. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. He has shown King Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days. Thy dream and the visions of thy head upon thy bed are these. As for thee, O king, thy thoughts came into thy mind upon thy bed, what should come to pass hereafter, and he that revealeth secrets makes known to you what shall come to pass. As for me, this mystery has been revealed to me not because I have greater wisdom than other living men, but so that you, O king, may know the interpretation, and that you may understand what went through your mind. Thou, O king, saw and behold a great image." This is verse 31. "This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. The image's head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. You saw till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them in pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain, and filled the whole earth. This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king." In verse 37, Daniel interprets the dream. He says, "You, O king, are a king of kings. For the God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven, has he given into your hand, and has made you ruler over them all. You are this head of gold. So the king of Babylon, and I think it is safe to say that the kingdom of Babylon, under his rule down until the fall of the Babylonians, is the head of gold. It says, after you, in verse 39, after Babylon shall arise another kingdom inferior to you. This was the chest and arms of silver. And we know even from the book of Daniel that the Medes and the Persians conquered the Babylonians. And so almost all scholars agree that the chest and the arms of silver are the Medes and the Persians. Again in 39. And another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. We're going to find out later in one of the visions that the Medes and the Persians were conquered by the king of Greece, which was Alexander the Great. So the third kingdom, almost everywhere you look, is going to be the kingdom of Greece. But verse 40 is where we want to focus our attention and where we get the most detail here. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, forasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and subdues all things. And as iron that breaks all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. And whereas you saw the feet and toes, so there's two legs of iron, and then there are feet and toes, verse 41, part of potter's clay and part of iron. The kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And just as you saw the iron mixed with clay, so the people will be a mixture and will not remain united, any more than iron mixes with clay. And in the days of these kings, what kings? Well, the kings of the feet, the toes, it said. Verse 42, and as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. So verse 44, in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom, which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to another people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. For as much as you saw that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the brass, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God has made known to the king what shall come to pass hereafter. And the dream is certain, and the interpretation thereof sure. So however we interpret this fourth kingdom, it reaches all the way into the future, as it says in verse 44, in the days of these kings. And we might make note that on the toes of the feet of this great image, there are 10 toes. And in the next vision, chapter 7, we're going to see 10 kings. So in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. So let's back up a little bit to the two legs of iron that turn into the 2 feet that are partly of iron and partly of clay. Verse 40, the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron. So during this fourth kingdom shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom, which shall never be destroyed. In verse 45, it says that he saw the stone that was cut out of the mountain without hands, broke not only the legs of iron and the feet of clay and iron, but it also destroyed the brass, the silver, and the gold. It actually reaches back in time and undermines the authority of these previous kingdoms. It puts them in perspective. It reveals them as pawns in the hand of an almighty God who's moving the kings of the earth around to accomplish his own purposes. His own purposes regarding the nation of Israel. He's using the kings of the earth to discipline his covenant nation. And we're going to see in the days to come that the discipline of that covenant nation is going to come into focus. He's already begun to set up this kingdom. He's established the foundations of it in the death and resurrection of Israel's Messiah. Remember Daniel chapter 9 that we've begun to look at. After 7 sevens and 62 sevens, 483 years, shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. So God has begun to lay the foundation of this kingdom that shall never be destroyed, but there's coming, yet in the future, an enforcing of that kingdom. And in the coming visions, we're going to see a clearer picture of God working the nature of Israel's Messiah into the saints, working into the saints of God, both in Israel and in the nations, working into them that willingness to lay down their lives for another. Jesus the Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, the Messiah of Israel, came in the early days of that fourth kingdom, in the strength of it, in the days of the iron legs, and paid for the sins of the entire human race. But he also laid the foundation for pouring out his Spirit into his people, into his saints, to demonstrate the power of that kingdom, to demonstrate the power of what was accomplished at the cross, to demonstrate the Spirit of God in once sinful humanity overcoming the kingdoms of the earth by laying down their lives for another. So as we go into chapter 7 and 8, we're going to see a focus on a final evil figure in human history that embodies the evil that has plagued all of us. And the big question for each one of us is, which king shall we serve? The king who comes in humility and lays down his life, or the king that exalts himself over the God of gods? But the one who lays down his life is the stone that smote the image and became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. This is Mystery of Israel Radio. We'll see you next time.